Hi, thanks for tuning to another episode of The Spiritual Scientist. Hey, I'm Victor Hamza. Thanks for checking me out. So I thought I'd do another video and have a new crib kind of set up for video. So hopefully you like the background. If it annoys you, let me know. Not that I might change it, but just always curious people's reactions. So today I thought I'd talk a little bit about some things going on and a new Mandela Effect that just came out that really flipped me out. So I thought I'd talk to you about it, see what you think. So get right to the Mandela Effect, and I think I'd talk about a couple other things. I'll let you go. So the Mandela Effect is, in Matthew now, Jesus goes to the Last Supper, but he's commands two disciples to go get him two donkeys. So he commands two disciples to go get him two animals and bring them back. So one's a donkey and one's a colt. So this, as all things do, was very surprising to me. So I went and looked up a colt and donkey, and the meaning behind the colt is, you could look at it like a foolish, but so could be considered a donkey. But the idea behind it was that Jesus was riding a animal, not like a a stallion. He's not riding a war horse. He was riding a horse of the people. So he was riding, like a donkey, what they said in before this Mandela Effect. But now he's riding, two animals. How could one person ride two animals, you might say? They can't. So this is completely strange. What I thought it might be symbolic for is that, like Christ consciousness, symbolizing that Christ consciousness came then, and Christ consciousness is riding upon another humble steed again, making itself known again. So we have that 2,000-year gap that was predicted for the second coming, and so now this would predict the second coming, when you have this prediction that's showing up in the biblical changes. So what we see here is that we have two steeds, a donkey and a colt, to be differentiated against. So they're not two donkeys. One's a donkey and one's a colt. So there are some slight differences between them. A donkey is obviously a hybrid, and between a mule and a horse is a donkey, right? And a colt is just kind of like a little bit different from a horse. It's just like a younger horse. So, but that horse could grow up to be a regular horse. So it's very different. As I recall, Colt back in the in the Midwest, it would be like, we have Colt 45, we had Colt, guns. So it's a cool thing. So I thought it was very good. I'm coming from the same thing, a humble place, a place where we're all at a base level. Like I try not to think I'm better than everybody else. Come to a universal consciousness where we're all kind of the same. So I don't let my ego get involved, I feel. So that is a very interesting Mandela Effect I thought I'd bring out. So to me, being that I've seen this myself, this Mandela Effect, and no one else has seemed to talk about it before that I know, so it's very, very interesting, to say the least. I was, praying, as I always do. It's funny, I wanted to talk about this when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and then he prayed. He said, Lord, let this burden be taken from me. If not, I'll, so he didn't want to go to the cross, and he stayed up all night, and the disciples fell asleep. Everybody knows, maybe you don't, but people know the story. And then in the Bible it says, the Lord, says to my Lord, the Lord says to my Lord, in I believe Psalms 42, sit at my, be at my footstool at my feet while I make your enemies, basically take care of your enemies, and just have a seat and I'll take care of it for you. So we have, we have that rapport between the different agencies of different levels of Godhead. That's what the Holy Trinity is about, right? So, and Jesus said, ye are gods. So when he said that, it's saying that we're all basically like gods, and we're all within, I think of it like a paradigm, like we're in, larger subsets. So I found that was, very interesting. And I talked about, I was brave enough, I feel like, talked about the Mars project in my last video. So that was a biggie to me to come out with that. I still have been looking at these implants, these magnetic implants for people. I'm still looking into it. I just watched a video, give a shout out to the, I believe it's called the Leap Project. He just released a video a few hours ago about implants and how some of them are magnetic, and they believe they're from aliens. So that's very interesting. If aliens do exist, which of course they do, they have trans-dimensional technology, so they can implant you with an implant without even being basically really near you. They just have to be in the right vibrational frequency, and then you would have an implant, right? So as I understand it, that's what's really going on, with some of that situation. Wanted to talk about something else. Another star disappeared. So according to scientists, it was 75,000 light years away, a giant star, giving off a large spectrum of light. You might see this in other channels talking about it. I was the first channel that I know of to talk about 100 stars that disappeared. I mentioned before in my other videos that the 100, it wasn't 99 stars that disappeared. It wasn't 101 stars that disappeared. It was 100. And if you look at the Bible and you read the Bible, it says that that's linked to the way that the Romans counted, like angels are counted like Roman centurions. So a centurion would have his troop underneath them. They would have 100 of them. So it seemed like I said that stars are just like the angels. So when we have a star that's disappeared, usually to me that means not a good thing. Now scientists are trying to propose that this may be, instead of a star going nova and then it goes into a field where it turns into a black hole, this may be, they said, an example of a way for a star to turn into a black hole without any fuss or muss. It just basically goes, it turns in from a star that's giving all that, it just does the reverse and turns into a black hole. To me, this sounds kind of ludicrous, but we'll let science have its day and say maybe that's what happened. It doesn't refute anything I'm saying about angels or anything else. That could be the case. Where'd the star go? Nobody knows. So this star has disappeared. So it's very fascinating. I thought I'd mention that as well. There was another Mandela Effect that people have talked about before, but I got an original, I went to a comic book convention, I got original copy of Star Wars first trilogy, Star Wars 4, 5, and 6. unedited, unabridged, with all that, without all the newer special effects and all that. And I'm watching it, and as I watch it, the Mandela effects keep pouring up and multiplying. And the weird part is that I'm really paying attention to C3PO. I'm really paying attention to R2D2. And as I'm watching it, they go away from them, and then they come back, and there's another Mandela effect. And I'm like, okay. So they pan away, and they do another scene, and he comes back in the scene, and there's something different with them. So it was very strange. I'm afraid to rewind the beginning because I know what's going to happen. It's as if he's always had that on him. So for instance, R2D2, silver head, white body. Doesn't make sense. When you look at the original Star Wars poster, it's all silver body, basically. Hard to tell. On C3PO now, he kind of has a crest, and now he has this long antenna coming off his, above his head from his back of his body. Is like a different color than the front of his body, and has a long thing coming out. It's just completely different. Other channels have talked about it. I'm not going to digress too much into it, but that to me was pretty amazing. There's a lot of other things I want to talk about. I'm already 11 minutes in, but interestingly enough, there's another. I brought out originally 2 weeks ago. I talked about Comet Neowise. Now you can see it with the unaided naked eye. Not that your eye had to wear clothes, but it's naked now. If you get up before dawn, you can look up and see a comet. That's very interesting. There's another channel, who shall remain nameless, that took a lot of the things I said and announced it. I can't say that he copied me. If he did copy me, you could copy me. If you want to give me credit, that's great. Maybe great minds think alike, and we all said the same thing. Neo being the one and Wise being awakened. I went into that in my last video 2 weeks ago. He just came out with it. And it's kind of funny where I see that this person has 10 times the amount of followers that I have. Is it 10 times? No, I'm sorry, 100 times. So I'm small time. So he has 100 times the followers I have. And when he mentioned it, I'm watching a video and I see the money pouring in. $100 here, $20 here, $10 here. People are just sending money. Ooh, that's so wise. And I'm like, okay, I said that 2 weeks ago. It doesn't bother me, but I just have to mention it because, my website's victorhamsa.com. If you feel so inclined to send moi some do-re-mi, it's certainly appreciated. I don't have enough subscribers to have the ability for you to send me funds through this, so you'd have to go on the web to do it. But so far, that's not happening. But that's okay. Let's keep plugging away, shall we? What else can I talk about? There is a lot of things, of course, in the news. We have the riders that were swept away when the government decided, hey, that was a failed experiment. We can't let them run their own country within the United States. So that took a number of weeks, and now they swept them out, which was ludicrous, the whole thing to begin with. It was just kind of organic thing, and it just shows, like, there really is not a, like I said before, there isn't any leadership, unfortunately. What else can I talk about? That was basically what I wanted to talk about. There are some other things that I'm going to save to the next video that I think will, knock your socks off. But this one with Jesus riding 2 horses. Okay, so we have 2 horses of the apocalypse, right? We have 2 of those. And now we have Jesus riding 2 horses. We have the 2 witnesses. We have the 2 lampstands. We actually have 2 goats. So I don't know if you knew that. So there's a scapegoat. You always have 2. There's a scapegoat. So what's that? So we have a goat that when you take they sacrifice a goat. So you take a goat, they call it, that's where they get the name scapegoat from. They take a goat and they kill it, sacrifice it. And then that goat gets killed. There's always two goats. And what they do usually with the second goat, they let it go. So they have these two goats and he said, you go into your freedom. So like there's a two Messiah theory. So there's one Messiah that comes at the beginning, he gets sacrificed. And there's a second Messiah that comes back at the renewal 2,000 years hence. And that Messiah would not be the sacrifice, that would be the king. So if you look into the two Messiah theory, this all comes into play and it just kind of builds in. So, I prayed about before. I said, God, when there's two things that are happening, I'll talk about it. But until then, I'm not bringing up two Messiah theory. It doesn't, for most people, it wouldn't, it doesn't make sense and no one's going to listen to me because no one ever listened to me. But I'm a biblical researcher, among other things. And when I found out about the two Messiah theory, which in Judaism was a big theory back with the Dead Sea Scrolls, back before 500 years BC, then that dual Messiah theory meant, okay, it meant that there was, if you look at it, so we have the son of David and the son of Joseph. So there always was, supposed to be two Messiahs. You had the king and you had the priest, you see. You always had, that was the way it was set up biblically, okay? Before, 500 years before, this was even a little bit before Isaiah came out. But yet everybody, changed it and they said, no, that's not true. That's not correct. There's only one Messiah, one Messiah. Okay, so when you read the original Algebraic text and you go into it and you see that the original, the people that lived up in the desert, okay, they were the precursors to the ones that were with, John the Baptist. That group, they lived up in the deserts, eating all that stuff. They were practicing aestheticism, so they didn't give in to worldly pleasures. And then they basically ate the milk and the, ate, as they say, the honey and the locusts and that, and they lived up there. Now, when they did that, they would commune and they really into their ritualistic behavior, and they came up with all this. And originally, there was always two Messiahs. So when I see, knowing about the dual Messiah theory, and when I see that there is now Jesus riding two horses, to me, I'm like, okay, that means that now's the time. Now's the time for this all to transpire. So it all makes sense. But it is a Mandela effect. So this Mandela effect is something that is, quite astounding to read two horses. And I went back as far as 2000, I saw 2019 now. Its idea inserts itself into the timeline. And I think I saw one as far as 2016. Let me know if this resonates for you. If you're familiar with the idea that Jesus rode a colt and a donkey, or if he always rode on one animal. And my question is, how could he ride on two animals? Doesn't make sense. So to me, this is a clear sign, biblical sign, while we're having swarms of locusts cover the earth, while there's all these things happening, uh, biblical plagues and everything else. And now this happens to transpire as a biblical text. To me, this is a biggie. That's why I thought I'd come out with it. To me, this means that, now's the time. And, I'm here. I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm here to help. So let me know your thoughts, comments. I'm the real deal. Anything you need, let me know. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share. Namaste. Peace out. Bye-bye.